Welcome. This video will be on general progression path that I recommend for Firebirds in Season 13 for a solo wizard. I assume solo wizard because if you were with a friend or a group, there would likely be different classes in there that would have better starter sets and would carry you to your actual farming set, which is Taurasha. That's our end goal, is to get to Taurasha and get off of Firebirds, but getting there will be quite difficult, so you have to manage it in stages, I would say. This video first, we're going to go let's briefly touch on leveling from 70 up to 70. Then, briefly touch on when you get the 6-piece set, and then I'm going to present to you a starter build that you could start off in seasons with after you get your 6-piece and farm comfortably a Torment 8 Rift. Now the first thing, when you hit level 1, hopefully you have saved your Challenge Rift so that you will be able to use the Challenge Rift, complete it after you enter your first game in season, and then do the Challenge Rift, receive the Challenge Rift bag from your mail slot. It should be over here when you have mail, and then you will be able to use those resources on your level 1 seasonal character to do different things. I recommend you check out Bloodshed's video on this. I will put a link in the description below to his video where he sort of goes more into detail as far as how you could specifically use these Death Breath and Blood Shards and all that. However, I will mention in this video what we're planning to use Blood Shards and Death Breath on, which is quite important. I am actually going to recommend sources, but specifically you have to be a level 33 character to be able to roll your Blood Shards on sources and successfully get the Etched Sigil. Etched Sigil is a huge multiplier. It has a very fancy legendary effect that's going to help us out in many different builds. So acquiring this while you're going through the leveling process is quite a boon. Now, as I mentioned, specifically level 33, because level 34 introduces many more sources into the pool, diluting your chances, therefore, of getting the Etched Sigil. So remember to stop, roll Blood Shards on sources. Hopefully you get this item. Now our D3 planner reports a 73% chance of getting this item. I tested 3,100 Blood Shards. I got a total of 4, and that's about a 61% success rate. So it's a fairly high success rate. I feel even though there is a chance that you may not get an Etched Sigil when you roll your Blood Shards in this manner, it's high enough that I would go for it and impactful enough as you're leveling, and especially after you've acquired your 6-piece set, impactful to the build enough that I'm going to recommend rolling your Blood Shards on sources once you hit level 33. And again, specifically level 33. So keep that in mind. Another thing that most of my builds assume is that at this point you have used your extract legendary power, Death's Breath, on cubing this Etched Sigil. This is specifically because at level 33 it's such low damage, and plus you may get one like this that has 126%, which is on the lower end of the legendary roll spectrum. Just cubing it, getting that max roll, and also being able to equip a higher damage item on your character will be much more beneficial in season. Something to remember for all of these starter builds that I'm going to be presenting to you is they are not set in stone. If, for example, in this particular build you feel you need more resource, feel free to swap out one of the runes, for example, on Diamond Skin to get more resource, or you could swap out a passive, for example, get more resource that way. It's not set in stone. You can change things around as required by whatever sort of legendaries you want to add in to make the build work. I just wanted to present builds that I know will work with the least amount of items required. That way you can sort of template and use them as a guide to get a build that you know is reliable and going to work efficiently. Alright, so this is going to be the Torment 8 starter build. After you've acquired your Hadric's Gift in Season, this is what you will use to clear Torment 8. I've been clearing Torment 8 very fluidly. The one requirement here is that you would have acquired an Etched Sigil. So, if you weren't lucky enough to get it through blood shards, I'm sorry, you're going to have to farm it through somehow through rolling blood shards later on. But this build is based on Etched Sigil, so just keep that in mind. What I did is to increase the base damage of the build, I went ahead and cubed the Etched Sigil. So we cubed the Etched Sigil, we've equipped a two-hander of some variety, a level 70 two-hander. They should be widely available. You should have found a couple of them. Just equip one of them, and you should be good to go for this build. There is extra room. If you, for example, were to find a Death Wish early on, you could, instead of the two-hander here, put the Death Wish in with any other source, any other level 70 source, just to be able to use that higher Death Wish multiplier. Now, the cool thing about this setup is it's very easy to ignite enemies. So the skills we are using are Disintegrate, Convergence, Apocalypse, and we're also using Forked Lightning. So the reason we channel and Blizzard casts our only spender on the bar, which is Blizzard Apocalypse. Now this doesn't stack as far as damage is concerned, but you can, if you rotate it across the screen, cover the entire screen, and then all you need to do beside that to ignite is click your Electrocute. Especially easy to do for an elite. You know, you just tap Electrocute and you channel, and the Etched Sigil will do the rest. The increased damage does increase the damage of both Blizzard and your Disintegrate, so be sure to hit things if you want to kill them quicker. This build does run out of resource pretty quick, but I found the damage is high enough that you shouldn't run out of resource too often. Now, in my gameplay video, as far as Paragon was concerned, I went with life per hit just because I wanted to make sure the resource in the build would be fine without a resource roll, but you could instead go with the resource cost reduction here to get just a tad more leeway in that regard. Let's see how much we have on gear. 12.6%. That would be just from your base shoulder roll. This item will roll with resource cost reduction by default, and then whatever you put in from Paragon or have randomly on another piece of gear, this build should work fine even with only those things, which is quite nice. Mobility, we're going to go with Illusionist for the extra movement. We have slotted quite a bit of cooldown reduction to be able to speed through the rift as much as possible, even without having an Aether Walker. So we have a diamond in the helmet for cooldown, and then I think I have one or two items rolled. So we have a ring here with cooldown, and we have a weapon with cooldown. The build still does work even if you don't have, say if you only have one item, it will work at this lower cooldown. It's just a tad slower is all. Base, you'll have 33% cooldown, considering we have slotted evocation in the build, and we are using cooldown in Paragon as much as possible, considering only 100 Paragon, and then other Paragons would be, you put into move speed for core, and then all resist as much as possible. As far as other passives go, we're using Blur for the extra defense, and Galvanizing Ward for that nice shield. Cool thing here is the higher your cooldown, the more efficient the rotation of your diamond skin and Galvanizing Ward will become. This diamond skin will be up more often. I really advise putting this on Numlock, as it will just help you play the build a lot easier. But this skill also increases your movement speed, along with the Teleport Illusionist combo. Makes you kind of breeze through quite nice and easy. We have the Wormhole rune for double teleports. It's quite a nice rune to have. You can also cast in succession, so you can click here, wait up to 2 seconds, and then cast again, because this has a 3-second delay before it resets, which is efficient for mobility. Here's another tip with this setup. I went with diamonds in the chest and pants instead of topazes. This increased, in combination with the prismatic armor, resistances and defense quite a bit, which is quite a boon early on, especially for a Firebird setup that can't have as much defense as some of the other sets early on. The cool thing I like about this build is it has a lot of area coverage. Because you can cover the entire screen in attacks, it tends to burn all the trash as well as the elites, and igniting is not such a problem. Progression-wise for this build, after you start farming more Death's Breath and more shards, would be to roll them on Source. I recommend rolling the Kadala blood shards on Source to be able to get transition to one of many Torment 11 builds that could use Orb of Infinite Depth, or, you know, maybe Triumvirate, any number of sources that you would need for that type of build. I would also recommend rolling your upgrade rare Death's Breath on wands, so keep those rare wands and use them in the cube with the Hope of Cain recipe. You could get any number of wands. You could get an Aether Walker, a Wand of Woe, you could get an Unstable Scepter. There are many wands that are available that would help you out in getting you to that Torment 11 level before you can transition on to your Tau set.